So I'm a chopper bobber type of guy, you know. I like the long front ends and yeah.
Get your hands dirty for a change.
Well, I have a hard time with the rigid frame, you already know that. We still have thousands of them, thousands, and they're from everywhere in the world.
Intense competition, legal battles, family feuds, and a few setbacks ultimately brought an end to the life of one of the most outstanding motorcycle fabricators in television history, Paul Teutul Jr. For years, viewers were captivated by Paul Jr. and Sr., one of the most fascinating family dramas ever to grace television screens. But what dark secrets lie behind the curtain? Join us as we uncover never-before-seen revelations, whispered stories, and rare confessions. This is the untold story of Paul Teutul Jr. of American Orange County Chopper, Genesis. On October 2, 1972, American helicopter star Paul Teutul Jr. and his wife welcomed their first child. A son appropriately named after the legend himself. At this time, no one could have predicted that this charismatic boy would eventually become one of the most iconic figures in motorcycle culture. As a child, Paul Jr. was mesmerized by his father's passion, motorcycles, a hobby that would ultimately shape his life and career. Alongside his siblings Michael, Kristen, and Daniel, Paul Sr. witnessed his father's steel business in Orange County thrive, and from a very young age, he immersed himself in the intricacies of craftsmanship. That was before the family was swept into the whirlwind of fame and fortune in Hollywood. At the age of 12, Paul began spending his summers working in the family business, honing his skills and earning a reputation for being a quick learner. But before the world knew him as a master metal fabricator and rubber burner like today, Paul was just a simple boy with dreams of following in his father's footsteps. Wherever his father's interests led, he followed. His father was his hero, although their lives would eventually be marked by countless television shows both off and on screen. Returning to high school, Paul became increasingly interested in ironwork when he joined the Cooperative Education Program Board, a program that allowed him to improve his metalworking skills. With this unique set of skills, Paul Jr. realized he was becoming increasingly valuable in the shop, although ultimately it altered his childhood experience. While other kids spent their summer vacations traveling the world with their families or engaging in other leisurely pursuits, Paul Jr. spent much of his time hanging out with adults in his father's shop. And as a result, he had to grow up fast. After graduating from high school, Paul Jr. dove into the world of steel fabrication, and instead of pursuing degrees and certifications, he became a full-time employee at Orange County Ironworks. Over the years, his role in the shop became increasingly apparent as he climbed the ranks until he became the head of the railing shop. But the Teutul family was about to undergo a significant change that few saw coming. That was when his father's interests began to shift towards motorcycle fabrication, a hobby that eventually turned into a wildly successful business venture. However, that reality was somewhat out of reach at the time. As Paul Jr. witnessed his father's newfound exploration develop from more than just a hobby, he also began to take an interest in custom motorcycle artistry. Then in 1999, a momentous event forever etched in the hearts of father and son occurred. Recognizing his son's skill in metalworking and fabrication, Paul Teutul Sr. introduced Jr. to this new motorcycle business venture. Thus, Orange County Choppers was born. From humble beginnings to Hollywood glory, every empire starts with a vision, and in 1999, Paul Teutul Sr. embarked on the first step toward his dream of becoming a world-class custom motorcycle builder. Originating from a highly successful iron fabrication business, Paul Sr. founded Orange County Chopper at 10 Factory Street, Montgomery, New York, before relocating to 27 Stone Castle Road in Rock Tavern, New York. 3 years after its inception, Orange County Chopper had garnered a reputation as one of the largest custom bike builders in America, and it wasn't long before the company caught the eye of the Discovery Channel. In December 2002, the world was introduced to the enigmatic figure that is Paul Teutul Jr. and his team of ragtag motorcycle enthusiasts, engineers, and brilliant craftsmen. It was love at first sight for many Americans, who couldn't get enough of the on-screen drama, the larger-than-life persona of the characters, and Of course, the brilliant work that went into building some of the most remarkable motorcycles you've ever seen. For many young viewers, this show became the foundation of a newfound passion for burning rubber and riding into the sunset like a rebel without a cause. American Choppers was born, marking the beginning of a journey that would shape the lives of many involved, both on screen and behind the scenes. Unlike many reality television shows, this one was different. The cast, which included Paul Teutul Sr., his son Paul Teutul Jr., Jason Pohl, Vincent DiMartino, Cody Connolly, Michael Teutul, and a host of others, weren't just actors following a script. They were individuals whose love for creating two-wheeled masterpieces transcended the fame and fortune it brought. The show quickly became a fan favorite, and within a relatively short period, the bike shop had moved from a relatively modest location to a $12 million, 61,000 square foot custom facility in Newburgh. The company owned the property until 2011 when serious financial trouble forced Paul Sr. to relinquish ownership to his chief lender, GE Commercial Finance Business Corporation, to avoid foreclosure. However, they continued to lease two-thirds of the property to maintain some control. For Paul Teutul Jr., though, Orange County Chopper was more than just a shot at fame, it was home. His role as the chief designer and fabricator propelled the business to astronomical heights. With his remarkable brilliance and imagination, he brought to life many amazing designs that astonished both the audience and even his fellow craftsmen at the Orange County Chopper Shop. But beyond building eye-catching bikes, Paul Teutul Jr. also captivated the audience with his on-screen persona. As a reality star, his imposing presence and ability to create a lasting impression on the audience earned him celebrity status. Even after leaving the show, he was able to capitalize on this fame, branching out on his own to create a magnificent empire that still stands today. However, the most memorable event on the show, which coincidentally also led to the cancellation of the entire series, was the heated feud between Paul Teutul Jr. and his father. You might recognize this showdown from the iconic meme or the thousands of YouTube videos discussing its pros and cons, but for these two, it was more than just for show. Join us as we recount the harrowing details of that fateful day when Orange County Chopper's dreams were dashed. Senior versus Junior. Everyone knows the worst business partners are often your own family. No one understands this better than Paul Teutul Jr. and his father, Senior, whose joint business endeavors ultimately fractured their personal relationship. As we delve into the tales of American Chopper, the heartbreaking saga of Paul Teutul Jr. From American Orange County Chopper, this pivotal moment still resonates. Long before the explosive brawl that killed the show, the father-son duo had engaged in numerous fiery arguments, many of which unfolded at a dangerously personal level, putting both their professional and personal lives at risk. Long before Kim Kardashian lost her earring under the sea. Before housewives truly began to set the internet ablaze, there were Paul Teutul Jr. and Sr., with their constant and consistently dramatic clashes. Though fans had grown accustomed to seeing them spar on screen and sometimes even anticipated it, the grandiose performance that unfolded in the iconic fifth season episode seemed to be the final straw that broke the camel's back. On this fateful day, Paul Teutul Jr. arrived at work late as usual, igniting simmering anger and frustration in his father, who believed he should hold his son to the same standards he expected from other employees. As Paul Jr. strolled into the shop 15 minutes past 8, his father's eyes flashed with displeasure as he struggled to keep his cool. As soon as Paul Jr. stepped foot inside, he was summoned to the office. Without mincing words, Paul Sr. expressed his dissatisfaction with his son's habitual tardiness. Before you could say Jack Robinson, the conversation escalated into a heated argument. Sr. laid into Jr. with all guns blazing, pointing out that he shouldn't have to babysit his grown son. This was where everything took a completely different turn. Instead of seeing things from his father's perspective, Jr. also lost his composure. Both began shouting at each other, hurling the nastiest insults possible without regard for each other's feelings. At this point, it was clear that both sides had lost the mutual respect they once shared. But things were about to veer off course very quickly. As Paul Sr. read the contract, emphasizing each instance where his son violated stipulated terms, Jr. decided he had had enough, picking up a chair and hurling it across the room. The entire saga culminated with Paul Jr. being fired from the shop and the show. This iconic moment inspired heated debates, forever immortalizing their infamous feud in internet lore. Over the next decade, the two men found themselves on opposite ends, embroiled in endless lawsuits, their father-son relationship shattered into pieces. After severing ties with Paul Jr., Paul Sr. went even further, filing a lawsuit against his own son, ushering in another chapter in their widely publicized father-son feud. Even after Paul Teutul Jr. was ousted from the show, Paul Sr. found ways to provoke his son, further estranging him from the family. You see, removing Jr. from the business wasn't a simple task, as he held a 20% stake. A percentage he wasn't willing to relinquish easily. Though previously a non-issue, with Paul Jr.'s termination, there was no way Sr. could allow him to continue running his own business. So, into the courtroom they went, father and son locking horns in a battle of the ages. With the world watching, the legal drama unfolded as each side presented their arguments. The New York Supreme Court became the stage where each side showcased their legal prowess. Paul Sr., the petitioner in the dispute, asserted that his company, Orange County Chopper Holding Incorporated, had the right to buy out his son's shares, severing all ties completely. He even sent a letter to Paul Jr., stating he was willing to exercise a stock option allowing him to purchase Paul Jr.'s position in the company for $500,000, while the lawsuit sought additional damages of $1 million. It was a backdoor deal that seemed to offer Paul Jr. a chance to minimize his losses. Initially, the victory seemed to lean in favor of Paul Sr., and the court ordered his son to sell his 20% stake in the company. But this young man wasn't one to back down from a challenge. Fighting fiercely against the odds, he continued to appeal the case, arguing that the option presented was unenforceable. Despite Paul Sr.'s lawyers vehemently arguing to uphold the lower court's decision, all four justices presiding over the appellate panel unanimously ruled in favor of the son, to the shock and awe of all courtroom observers. It was a turning point everyone anticipated, but no one could have predicted would happen. Though this victory was deemed favorable for the son, the dynamics in his relationship with his father had been severely affected, and for a decade, the two never spoke. But as with all things, life had to move on. And while the chapter on Paul Jr.'s American Chopper had closed, it was time to venture into uncharted territories. Enter the next chapter, Paul Jr.'s designs. When one door closes, another one opens, as they say. This was the case for Paul Teutul Jr. After severing ties with his father, Paul found himself at a crossroads. Though no longer working for his father's Orange County Choppers, his contract included a non-compete clause, preventing him from starting any custom shop of his own for a year after leaving the company. But after a year passed, Paul Jr. began planning for the next chapter of his life, and in April 2010, rumors began circulating that he intended to start his own motorcycle business to rival his father's. According to reports by the infamous gossip outlet TMZ, Paul Jr. had been plotting to recruit some former OCC employees, who were also disgruntled like him. Among these included Michael Teutul, Vincent DiMartino, Joe Pugliafico, and Robert Collard, who played pivotal roles at Orange County Choppers. Some of the rumors were confirmed when Paul Jr. announced his new business venture, Paul Jr. Designs, only hiring one of his father's former employees, Cody Connolly. But along with this new company came a new TV show, inviting an uninvited guest back into Paul Teutul Jr.'s life, American Chopper, Sr. vs. Jr. after a humiliating exit from the public eye in 2008. Paul Teutul Jr. returned with the spin-off of American Chopper, Sr. vs. Jr. The show premiered on August 12, 2010, on TLC and focused on the rivalry between Paul Teutul Sr.'s Orange County Chopper and Paul Jr.'s Designs. The program spanned 4 seasons, from 2010 to 2012. The entire saga culminated with Paul Jr. being fired from the shop and the show. This iconic moment inspired heated debates, forever immortalizing their infamous feud in internet lore. Over the next decade, the two men found themselves on opposite ends, embroiled in endless lawsuits, their father-son relationship shattered into pieces. After severing ties with Paul Jr., Paul Sr. went even further, filing a lawsuit against his own son, ushering in another chapter in their widely publicized father-son feud. Even after Paul Teutul Jr. was ousted from the show, Paul Sr. found ways to provoke his son, further estranging him from the family. You see, removing Jr. from the business wasn't a simple task. As he held a 20% stake, a percentage he wasn't willing to relinquish easily. Though previously a non-issue, with Paul Jr.'s termination, there was no way Sr. could allow him to continue running his own business. So, into the courtroom they went, father and son locking horns in a battle of the ages. With the world watching, the legal drama unfolded as each side presented their arguments. The New York Supreme Court became the stage where each side showcased their legal prowess. Paul Sr., the petitioner in the dispute, asserted that his company, Orange County Chopper Holding Incorporated, had the right to buy out his son's shares, severing all ties completely. He even sent a letter to Paul Jr., stating he was willing to exercise a stock option allowing him to purchase Paul Jr.'s position in the company for $500,000, while the lawsuit sought additional damages of $1 million. It was a backdoor deal that seemed to offer Paul Jr. a chance to minimize his losses. Initially, the victory seemed to lean in favor of Paul Sr., and the court ordered his son to sell his 20% stake in the company. But this young man wasn't one to back down from a challenge. Fighting fiercely against the odds, he continued to appeal the case, arguing that the option presented was unenforceable. Despite Paul Sr.'s lawyers vehemently arguing to uphold the lower court's decision, all four justices presiding over the appellate panel unanimously ruled in favor of the son, to the shock and awe of all courtroom observers. It was a turning point everyone anticipated, but no one could have predicted would happen. Though this victory was deemed favorable for the son, the dynamics in his relationship with his father had been severely affected, and for a decade, the two never spoke. But as with all things, life had to move on. And while the chapter on Paul Jr.'s American Chopper had closed, it was time to venture into uncharted territories. Enter the next chapter, Paul Jr.'s designs. When one door closes, another one opens, as they say. This was the case for Paul Teutul Jr. After severing ties with his father, Paul found himself at a crossroads. Though no longer working for his father's Orange County Choppers, his contract included a non-compete clause, preventing him from starting any custom shop of his own for a year after leaving the company. But after a year passed, Paul Jr. began planning for the next chapter of his life, and in April 2010, rumors began circulating that he intended to start his own motorcycle business to rival his father's. According to reports by the infamous gossip outlet TMZ, Paul Jr. had been plotting to recruit some former OCC employees, who were also disgruntled like him. Among these included Michael Teutul, Vincent DiMartino, Joe Pugliafico, and Robert Collard, who played pivotal roles at Orange County Choppers. Some of the rumors were confirmed when Paul Jr. announced his new business venture, Paul Jr. Designs, only hiring one of his father's former employees, Cody Connolly. But along with this new company came a new TV show, inviting an uninvited guest back into Paul Teutul Jr.'s life, American Chopper, Sr. vs. Jr. after a humiliating exit from the public eye in 2008. Paul Teutul Jr. returned with the spin-off of American Chopper, Sr. vs. Jr. The show premiered on August 12, 2010, on TLC and focused on the rivalry between Paul Teutul Sr.'s Orange County Chopper and Paul Jr.'s Designs. The program spanned 4 seasons, from 2010 to 2012. Over the course of 2 years, the two teams clashed in a game of wit and skill, some of which even transcended professional wrestling into personal animosity. Unfortunately, Sr. vs. Jr. didn't quite perform well, and by 2012, the show was cancelled. As the spin-off came to an end, the distance between father and son began to widen even further. And the men rarely spoke. But Paul Teutul Jr. was about to play another card, the final card revealing the true story behind the events between Sr. and Jr. beyond what was depicted on screen, in his tell-all memoir. On November 7, 2017, Paul Teutul Jr. unveiled his first book titled The Build. Designing My Life of Choppers, Family, and Faith. For many who follow the father-son saga, this was a significant moment as we were finally about to get the juicy details straight from the source. Though both father and son displayed many of their toxic traits in front of the camera, what happened behind the scenes seemed even more concerning. In an interview following the release of his book, Paul Jr. revealed that the publication was actually planned in the fall of 2016. However, things didn't quite go smoothly, but according to him, the timing couldn't have been more perfect. That's because at the time of the book's release, the feud between the two sides had garnered considerable attention. Paul's shop had completed, and the world was ready to hear his side of the story. In the book, Paul Jr. disclosed harsh realities when thrust into the spotlight. Though he quickly emphasized that beyond the strain in his relationship with his father, the experience was quite positive, except for the fact that he had to do a lot of things. For those doubting whether the brawls were real or not, Paul Jr. dispelled the confusion right from the first page of his book. It wrote, "In 10 seasons and 233 hour-long episodes, my father and I were often as difficult to turn away from as we were difficult to watch." And yes, it's true. In the first few pages, Paul Jr. takes readers on a deep dive into his childhood and the hardships of growing up with a man like his father, whom he describes as a monster. Clearly, Paul Sr. struggled with alcohol addiction, an issue that caused significant tension in his relationship with his family. However, the issue seems to be somewhat generational, as Paul Jr. also revealed that his father grew up with an alcoholic mother and his parents spent more time arguing than showing affection. With an understanding of Paul Sr.'s upbringing, Jr. finally accepted his father's explosive nature, and he even felt sorry for him. According to Paul Jr., this chapter revealing all of this was quite emotional for him to write because it required him to dig back into a past he had tried so hard to forget. Like a haunting nightmare, this chapter of his life occasionally resurfaced, plunging him into an emotional turmoil for years of light that he believed he had successfully overcome. Here's a small excerpt to give you an idea of how deep-rooted the story is. It's difficult to recount in detail in this book the terrible experiences I had with my father because he is my father, I love him, and I have longed for a normal relationship with him. But there is a glimmer of hope for this stormy sky. Witnessing his addiction slowly tearing the family apart, Paul Sr. entered rehab and after extensive treatment, he was able to maintain a stable relationship with his son, albeit that depends on your definition of stability. Eventually, as both reconnected, their shared love for motorcycles came to an end. While working on the shovelhead they customized under the basement of their house, the two men were able to have difficult conversations, apologies, and move forward in their healing process. However, this story occurred before their infamous on-screen feud, so we can't truly know how deeply their relationship was healed. Continuing from his father, Paul Jr. also talks about his other siblings, Mikey, Danny, and Kristen, as well as his mother Paulina, who became a driving force in his life and passion. The book also includes revelations about Paul Jr.'s Christian faith and how it deeply influenced his decisions and life path. He credits God for his bike-building talents, confirming that his faith was the foundation for everything he built over the years. Taking the audience on a journey through his life, Paul Jr. delves into the television show highlighting his role in Orange County Choppers. He says that initially, he believed he would one day take over the company, but at some point, he realized that dream would never come true. This is a particularly poignant part of the story. And you can feel the pain in his pen as he records this significant part of his history. In this disclosure, Paul Jr. admits that it was only when he distanced himself from the business that he realized the relationship wasn't as healthy as he thought. Working with a man like Paul Sr. drained his spirit, and when he was fired, it felt more like a relief than a negative experience. The title of the book itself, The Build, is not just a play on words. It's simple yet powerful, concise yet profound. Paul Jr. also acknowledges his wife for supporting his memory throughout the writing process. Paul Teutul played her role very well, not only as a pillar for her husband but also as a fact-checker, ensuring that every story was accurate down to the smallest detail. For Paul, this book has been a long time coming, and his goal is to bring the public into his world to ensure a broader understanding of his life story. As we delve into previously unseen stories, we are taken into a world where fiction becomes stranger than reality and family feuds are laid bare. The revelations in this book will astound you, and some will shock you, but overall, it will help you understand more about the mysterious life of Paul Teutul Jr. Before we continue with even more astonishing revelations, here are our subscribers' picks for today. As we explore the intriguing stories of American Chopper, the heartbreaking saga of Paul Teutul Jr. from American Orange County Chopper, we are captivated by his remarkable story. Despite being the son of a highly successful man, Paul Jr.'s story wasn't a bed of roses. This picture captures him in his most vulnerable moment, as he recounts some of the traumatic experiences that not only shaped his life, but also his relationship with his father. From childhood drama to on-screen feuds and legal battles, their relationship has been a roller coaster, playing out in full view of the world. In this captivating story, the world has been divided along borderlines, as many voice their support for the father, while others stand with the son. In matters like these, taking a side can be a challenge, as each party offers convincing arguments that would tend the support in their favor. Who do you believe is responsible for the sedition that plagued the relationship? The father or the son? Let us know in the comments. Now, let's get back to the video. American Chopper Special Episode: Family Feuds, Legal Drama, and Bitter Rivalries, a few events that punctuated the relationship between Paul Teutul Sr. and his son. But it all came to a head in August 2020 when the two legendary craftsmen decided to put their beef aside and return for one final episode. Fans were thrilled when news of the 2-hour American Chopper special episode was announced, as it marked the fulfillment of a dream many believed would never become reality. For a whole decade, the father-son duo had taken their fans on a wild ride, and after years of trying to build their fractured relationships, they decided to go back to where it all started. The garage. This was built on the hopes that working on a custom bike together would inspire the love they once shared and restore their broken relationship. This highly emotional episode begins with Paul Teutul Jr. and Sr. discovering that the original Orange County Chopper's building was going to be torn down. This revelation tugged at our heartstrings, making even the strongest men shed a little tear. Father and son then decided to pay a little visit to the old building, picking up a few things left behind while reminiscing on the old days. Overcome by the history of the building, Paul Jr. jumps on the opportunity to ask his dad to build a bike together. After taking some time to think about it, Paul Sr. agrees, and the two set out to work on a custom chopper for ABC Supply Company, one of the largest distributors of exterior and interior building products. However, complications arose between the father and son duo as they worked on their last project together. In a bid to create a one-of-a-kind chopper, creative processes clashed as Paul Jr. and Sr. tried to incorporate their unique styles into the build. When Paul Jr. pushes for more creative input, the entire build is thrown into jeopardy, bringing back memories of the original show like it was just yesterday. Fortunately, both parties were able to work through their differences this time, and even with a deadline of just 8 weeks, the combined team was able to build a masterpiece. This marked a befitting end to one of the most iconic shows on television and a perfect punctuation to the father-son duo we have all come to know and love. Where is Paul Teutul Jr. today? Today, Paul Jr. Designs continues to churn out an unending stream of custom bikes as well as beautifully crafted apparel. Some notable choppers released from the stables of PJD include the Pharaoh bike, the Cadillac bike, the Sapphire bike, the March of Dimes bike, and the New York Yankees bike, to mention a few. The brilliant craftsman has also lent his creativity in the production of some bikes for films and video games. In addition to working on a number of other side projects. This includes the designing of a municipal dog park, a playground set, and 10th anniversary Coleman barbecue grill. The company currently works hand in hand with Paul Sr.'s company and has hired many of its former employees. Professional life aside, Paul Jr.'s personal relationship has been pretty stable. In 2010, he got married to the love of his life Rachel Biester, and together they appeared in the hit TLC series, Say Yes to the Dress. Their beautiful marriage was blessed with a son named Hudson in 2015, and in 2020, the couple purchased their dream home on Long Beach Island. With a successful business to his name, Paul Jr. has amassed a net worth of about $2 million, and his destiny seems to be headed for the stars. Thank you for watching this video, see you in the next one.